What's up guys, welcome to Game Time. Today I'm talking all about Apple Arcade, the new Apple subscription video game service. $4.99 a month, you get a bunch of games. I think at the minute there's less than 100, but they're going to add more games as time goes along. So I'm just going to go straight into it. Here are the games that I've played so far on this service. When Cards Fall. So When Cards Fall is very reminiscent of like Hitman Go, if you've ever played that. You've got like an environment that you're in, your character starts off in one location, you need to get to the other location, the other side of the map. There's different platforms, different levels, and what you need to do is you get over to a card, drag it around, raise it up, so you're making like a block of cards essentially. That way you can then jump from platform to platform to get across the map, and you can add different layers of cards, you can get like stories, different stories of cards there. The puzzles are really quite good, they're really interesting. It makes you think. Some of them start off quite easy and it gets gradually more complicated and difficult as it goes along. Graphically, the game is good looking, it's got very good visuals about it, and yeah, I like this game quite a bit. It's really quite interesting. Just so you all know, these games, these aren't reviews that I'm doing, these are very much just impressions so far. I haven't finished any of these games yet. So When Cards Fall is definitely a game I'm going to try and dig into more. It's one of these games where you can just pick it up, play it anytime you want. There is a story in there, and this is the most disappointing thing about the game, is that, at least so far from what I've played, I can't make sense of the story. I don't know what it's about. It clearly has some sort of message or meaning in there, I just can't put it together. Maybe I'm just stupid, I don't know. But maybe that's also something that's meant to be revealed later on in the game, so maybe I just haven't got there yet. But the story's quite disappointing so far. But the gameplay, pretty fun, lots of good puzzles in there, makes you think. Frogger in Toy Town. So Frogger, of course this is a new Frogger game. If you've ever played Frogger before, you know what it is. You're a frog, you start at the bottom of the screen, you need to get to the top of the screen essentially, while dodging oncoming vehicles and items and so on. This is very classic Frogger. It looks gorgeous, I have to say that, which is something I'm going to say quite a bit about these Apple Arcade games, that they are pretty impressive. And I should also note I am playing these primarily on an iPhone XS, so that might affect what they look like. I have tried some of them out on the iPad as well, and a couple on my Apple TV. So graphically, good looking game, very simplistic. You just flick up for it to move up, flick left and right to move left and right. You get the idea there. There are a bunch of collectibles you can get. You've got to rescue frogs, avoid the traffic. One of the issues I had with this is I didn't think it was as smooth or as responsive as I'd have liked it to be. So I'm flicking up and then he moves up, rather than he's not reacting with my finger, he's reacting to my finger. So that was a little frustrating, and that's something I'm going to touch upon in a lot of these games, is that the reaction times aren't quick. These are pretty slow moving games. Just to get back to When Cards Fall a little bit, the big detraction for me on that game is that it's really slow. The cards moving around the board and raising them up and all that is really quite quick and responsive, but actually moving your character from platform to platform throughout the levels is really slow and cumbersome, and quite a put off, to be honest. The same thing happens here in Frogger, although it's nowhere near as bad in Frogger. But yeah, it's classic Frogger on your phone. If you like Frogger, you're gonna like this. Shinsekai Into the Depths. This is the one game on the Apple Arcade so far which I felt was trying to be like a video game that you would play on a console. That's not necessarily a bad thing, it's not necessarily a good thing, but this is the game I have the most problems with. Graphically, I think it's quite impressive. Sound design, I think, is quite impressive. It does recommend that you play it with earphones. I didn't do that though. So basically what this is, you're underwater, something's going on, you then have to escape, you're being timed because the thing that's going on, basically everything's freezing over, and you've got to get out of there as quick as you can. Problem is, really slow paced game, more so than When Cards Fall, I would say. This game, half the time, because what you do is you basically hold your phone sideways and you're using it as if it's a controller. Well, there's a lot of things on the screen at once. You've got a bunch of icons on the top left, bunch of icons in the bottom right, and so on and so forth. So there's only two small areas where on the left hand side you use it to move around, on the right hand side you use it to like aim and boost and do a bunch of other stuff. Well, the problem is, half the time I was asking it or trying to get it to do things, and it just wasn't doing it. So either my thumb was drifting away from the point that it happened, or it had to be so precise and so accurate. It made it really frustrating, and the fact that the game was really slow, but also you're being timed at the same time because something's trying to catch up to you, really annoying. And I feel like this game probably best played with a controller. I don't know if this game has controller support. I never tried that yet, so maybe that's something I should give a go. But playing this on my phone was really just more frustrating than anything else. But otherwise, it's a pretty competent platformer when it works and when it's responsive. The environments are pretty good looking. I imagine once you blow it up onto like an iPad or an Apple TV, it's going to look pretty darn good. But everything condensed on my phone was fine. It's not a showstopper, it's not a scene stealer by any means, but probably worth checking out if you've got the time. Tango Tower. So Tango Tower, this is the game I've enjoyed the most on Apple Arcade. This is a very classic point and click adventure game where you are playing as two detectives who have arrived at Tango Tower, this mansion where there's two towers jutting out of it, two families living there, one on one side of the tower, one on the other side, and there's been a murder. So this is very classic. You get in there, meet the people, try and decipher what's going on, what's happened, who's the killer. It's a very classic whodunit. You click around the screen at all the items, and then they've constantly got something to say. It's pretty funny. It's very reminiscent of like the LucasArts games or even some of the Telltale games. It feels like it's perfect for an iPhone or an iPad or whatever. So I really recommend this game. It's got a good story in there, great characters, lots of humor, very simple point and click stuff, and it feels like it's more suited to being on a phone or a tablet compared to some of the other games that I've played. So yeah, Tango Tower, the one game that I'm definitely going to play till completion. I'm enjoying it a lot. Operator 41. So Operator 41, a little like when Cards Fall, it's reminiscent of like Hitman Go. This one really much like Hitman Go. You get like a board game like environment with some characters and like bushes and platforms in there. You're essentially a spy kind of character. You start off one side of the board and then you need to get to the telephone on the other while avoiding the cones of vision from the guards and cameras and so on. So it's almost like Hitman Go meets the original Metal Gear Solid. And the idea there is great, but the problem is that it's really slow again. You are clicking on certain boards where you want your character to go, and then it takes a little while for your character to get there. So by the time, you really have to play it like small chunks to get across the map. Otherwise, if you're trying to get from one side to the other side in one foul swoop, it's not going to happen because the character's moving so slowly. And another thing is, this is the really frustrating thing, is there's no way to maneuver or adjust the camera. So if you are on this side of the map and then there's a platform here and your goal is on this side, you can't actually see what's on this side until your character gets there. And then once you get there, you can go backwards, but the camera's not going to adjust easily. The camera was really frustrating at times. I wanted to just flip it around, see exactly what I could do, where I could go, and it just wouldn't let me do that. And there are times because of this where it's not clear what you're supposed to do or where you're supposed to go. Really frustrating and annoying. You can also like pick up items like plant pots and use them as either distractions or as to just take down the guards themselves. But it's not the most accurate thing ever. So you could ask it to take down a guard, and because of the way you're positioned, you could just throw it at a wall instead. And like a wall on the complete opposite side of the board as well. So that's a bit annoying. But there are ways around that. It's mainly because if you're like behind a desk, then your back's to the desk, you pick up the plant, then throw it forward rather than backwards. So I get what they've done there, but it can be a bit frustrating. Visually, it's picking up on like old noir detective films from like the 50s and so on. So visually, I kind of like it. The music and the soundtrack's pretty good there as well, but the gameplay, a little disappointing. It's more frustrating than anything else. Sayonara Wild Hearts. So this is probably the biggest game that they're promoting on Apple Arcade right now, because this is coming to, I believe, Nintendo Switch and a bunch of consoles. It's a music rhythm game, very fast paced. There are two settings here, and my big recommendation if you're going to try this is that don't play it on a normal sensitivity, play it on a high sensitivity. That way the game The characters on the game screen are much more responsive to what you're actually wanting them to do. But essentially, your character moving quickly through an environment, it's almost like a Sonic or like a Super Mario Run kind of thing, but it's forward, front, and bunch of items approaching you. You need to collect them. You're weaving in and out of things, avoiding objects. There are some quick time event action scenes in there as well, where you've got to like tap a button as it appears on the screen, and it's very fast paced, very energetic. Great soundtrack with great music and score in there. Visuals are also quite good as well. Very colourful game. Not my cup of tea though. So this is a game I would say you definitely have to check out, but it might not be for everyone. So those are the games that I've played so far. There's plenty of us in there. I'm going to go back to Tango Tower. Probably going to try out a couple more in other various forms, and I'm definitely going to look at some of the other games on the service. Like I said, there's about 100 in there, and they're going to continue adding stuff in there. So for $4.99 a month, the first month is free, by the way. What do I think of this service so far? I think it's pretty good. Pretty cheap, I would say, for the amount of games they're getting there and the quality of the games that you're getting there. There's no microtransactions in there. There's no rubbish in there where you get to a certain point and you've got to wait a certain amount of time before you can play it again. It's like these are full-on game experiences. They're not just mobile games either. They don't feel like classic mobile games. It's not like Candy Crush and Angry Birds and stuff like that. These are more fully developed, depth-filled games. There's more to them than just clicking buttons and trying to get like the best score and so on. Although there are some games on there which you can totally do that with, I imagine. I think it's well worth checking out it for a free month if you've got some sort of Apple device. In comparison, Google Plays came out with their version of it, which is the same price, but they have got some of the more typical classic mobile style games on there. So maybe that's something you should check out on Android. I don't know, I haven't played any of them, but this shows a lot of promise, I think, and I think if they continue adding games of this quality and this nature to it, it's going to be something that maybe if there's a big game coming out a certain month, totally just cough up £5 or $5 or whatever to try it out, and even try out some of the other ones. So Apple Arcade so far, it's a good thing, I think, so far. And it's saying something as well when you've got these other companies coming out with their version of this or trying to compete with this. And then you've got mobile games coming out there, like the new Mario Kart, for example, is more expensive than this service. So you can either get Mario Kart, which is more expensive and getting some mixed reviews, or you can get this, which is cheaper with more games available. So yeah, it's for the price that it is, I think it's kind of a bargain, and you should check it out. But that's my early impressions of Apple Arcade. I might come back later and give you more in-depth reviews of these games, I would say. But so far, I like it quite a lot. If you've liked this, subscribe to my channel. The more subscribers I get, the more content I can make. And I really appreciate any subscribers that I get, so please subscribe. Also go on the Twitter and Instagram and follow me at @the_Grant_Burton if you want. And leave comments and feedback down below if you want as well. And until next time, thanks for watching.